Welcome, 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 everyone, to the Women's Empower Network. And I have another exciting interview for you today. And we have the pleasure and honor of having Quiche with us today. Hi, Quiche.
Hi, how are you?
I'm great. How are you doing?
Doing fantastic. Happy to be here.
Thank you. Me too. So, if you wouldn't mind, if you would share a little bit about your story and journey, particularly what led you to doing what you're doing today, and why are you so passionate about it?
Yeah, so this is something I tell all the time. So we'll start from the beginning. I was born and raised in Tennessee. When I was 4, I knew without a shadow of a doubt I was going to be a doctor. That was like the thing I wanted to do. So my parents were super awesome. They put me in extra classes, did all the things to help me to build my resume to be able to get into med school. Fast forward the tape to college, I had the unique opportunity to job shadow in a hospital. And when I did that, it was like an eye-opening experience, and it wasn't really aligned with what I wanted to do anymore. And it wasn't because I saw anything like gross or crazy. It was really the fact that we are very heavily focused on pharmaceuticals. And for me, if you asked me when I was younger, I wanted to fix people. But I really just wanted to help them to really understand what it was that was causing their problem and solve the problem. So it took me about, I don't know, like a whole semester to figure out I don't want to do this. And that was a very hard conversation because I felt like I was doing that because my parents had invested so much time, money, and effort into getting me here that I felt bad, right? I was really just doing it for them. But when I had the conversation, they were like, okay, well, what do you want to do? And it was kind of like, oh, great. And they said their only criteria was that I finished school. So I really like to call that my identity crisis. I had no idea who I was, what I was meant to do, what I was going to do. So when I graduated, I moved to Colorado. And that really started my journey of really self discovery. So, a friend of mine had suggested that I start taking yoga classes because I had crazy anxiety and depression. And I was very averse to it. I was like, I do not want to take yoga. That's crazy. So I finally did it and I fell in love with it. And one of my instructors literally like hounded me, you should go through teacher training. And I was like, lady, I don't want to teach it. I just enjoy the practice. Well, she kept going on. And if you know anything about teacher trainings, especially then, they were like 3,000 plus dollars. And I was like, well, I don't want to pay that for an experience I don't really want anyway. And then she said, well, there's a scholarship. And I said, oh, okay, well, I'll apply for the scholarship, really just to make you stop asking me. And nutshell version of that story, I got the scholarship. So I went through the training, which was absolutely life-changing and so good for me. So started a little side business doing that. In 2019, I was really working in corporate America, climbing the ladder, doing all the things, but was really unhappy in that space. So much so, one day I woke up and I asked myself, what is the point of being here? And if anybody's ever been in a space like that, there is one or two directions you could go, and it's a scary time. So I really had to sit with myself to figure out what it is that I wanted to do. And what I came up with was that there's no way we were all put on this earth to work, pay bills, and die. Like that would make zero sense for us all to be here. So I had to really sort of pull myself out of that space and figure out what I was going to do to be able to get myself to more of a happy place. So a few months later, COVID came to town and shut everything down. And was very grateful to still have my job, but as a essential employee, I didn't have choices. I didn't have the choice on whether or not I wanted to go out and face whatever this thing was, because at the time we had no idea what it was. People were dying, like all these things. And so that really opened my eyes to say, like, I need to take control of my life. And so from there, what I did was started my first coaching business, and I was teaching people how to manage their stress and anxiety. And I fell in love with that, put in a leave of absence at my job. I moved back to Tennessee and then I quit my job. So when I got here, I really sort of ramped it up, but it made it feel like I went from working a job to owning a job. So it's like, it just didn't feel good to me. So I convinced myself, you're going to get a job temporarily until you figure out what you want to do. 2 years later, I'm still in this job. I hit the same wall that I hit before, and I'm like, this is not making me happy. So, like, why do you keep putting yourself in this situation? So, what I had to realize is that I wasn't doing anything that made me happy. I wasn't doing anything for joy in life. And so I said, don't worry about monetizing things. Just go do something that makes you happy. Right. So I got my personal training certification, my nutrition certification, and really fell in love with it because I've always loved health and fitness. So I started health coaching. And from there, I was like, I should turn this into sort of a more impactful thing for people. And I started a program. And the results that came out of that were completely amazing. So much so that one of my students who were in a similar space to myself, she really like pulled herself out of that space, quit her job, started her own business. And it's going so well that she's actually at a point to where she is needing to hire employees.
Wow.
Yeah, so I was like, okay, like I think this is it. So started to rebrand my business, do all the things, and then my job laid me off. And that was like a gut punch to me. So of course I hit panic mode. I threw out over 40 job applications and I got 0 responses. And I was like, well, how is this possible? I have so many skill sets. Like, how am I not getting anything? And so that was really just like a sign to me that this is what I was meant to do. So now I just help really those executives and entrepreneurs to live healthy, happy, successful lives. That is a big nutshell version of how I came to do what I do.
Wow, that's amazing. But it's kind of funny how you came full circle,
Mm-hmm.
because you knew you wanted to help people, but that the medical field and pharmaceuticals, I am right there with you, sister, on pharmaceuticals. I love the technology. I love the diagnostic part of it and the preventative part, but yeah, not the pharmaceuticals. Mm-mm.
Yeah.
So yeah, and then you kept trying to. Isn't it interesting how we'll do what's familiar,
Mm-hmm.
what's known, because the unknown is just that, unknown. So it's interesting. I smiled to myself because I've been there, where when you're not supposed to go down a path, you are not supposed to go down that path.
Yeah. Yeah. And it was like a big roadblock with all the flashing lights that said no. So I've really just had to learn how to step in faith into this new journey. And it has been completely amazing. Like, I don't regret it for anything.
That's amazing. So there's two. Well, there's a Y in the road. Two directions we could go is what I'm trying to say.
Mm-hmm.
So one thought is, what would you say to somebody who knows that they're on that hamster wheel at a job and they're not sure what their calling is? How did you learn what yours was?
Yeah, and this is something I really take people through, but it's really asking yourself, what do you want? Because like a lot of times, especially for me, it was you could talk all day about what you didn't want. I don't want this job. I don't want to be broke. I don't. But when asking yourself truly the question, what do you want or what do you see for your life is a very important one to ask. And if you haven't asked yourself that question, I implore you to do so. And it took me a while to figure that out, but really just figuring out what you see for yourself, what you want, what you desire, sort of like your vision. And if you don't know that, like nothing else is really going to line up, right? So once you figure that part out, it's then figuring out, okay, what am I passionate about? Because I feel like anything that we do, we need to do it with joy and happiness. And if you were like me in that space, I wasn't doing anything that made me happy. I was just doing all the things that like I thought we were taught to do and that we should
Right.
do. But once I figured out kind of what I wanted and figure out what I was passionate about, that's what's taking my life full circle.
That's beautiful. And I know a lot of people, they stay too long and like they lose their job or they get really sick and they're forced to quit
Mhm,
because they're really out of alignment with what life is calling them forward to do.
mhm.
That's
Yeah.
so true. And so the other part of it is who's your ideal client? Who do you love working with the most?
So, really, executives and entrepreneurs are sort of a big market for me, and specifically females. But anybody in that space knows what it feels like to be under high stress. We talked about one off, being burnt out on things, and really just having that doubt, like, you're not really supposed to be here, but you don't know what to do, or maybe you know what you want to do, but you're like doubting your ability to succeed or to be able to accomplish it, right?
Right.
So people that are sort of in that space and they're just looking to turn things around, as far as those qualities go, and really wanting to step into a healthy, happy life. And once you have those two components in place, that's when you can be successful.
Isn't that the truth?
Mhm.
Yes. Um, so is there anything else that comes to mind that you would like to share with us today?
Just piggybacking off of what I just said, when you actually are finding something that you enjoy, like, you don't have to do it to make money, right? If your job is super stressful and you have time after work to be able to do something that's going to make you like truly laugh, truly smile, truly be happy. Maybe it's serving people, maybe it's like me and I'm weird and I love health and fitness. So I went out and learned more about that. Whatever it is, I implore you to try that out. But the big part is your health, because as you said, like, some people are just unwell and they're forced to, have to leave their job or what have you. That happens all the time. And especially in a stress state, that is a very dangerous situation. So really taking control of your health. And that's really one of the biggest things that I focus on with people is your health first, because then everything else, in my opinion, will fall into line once you have that together.
Yeah, I can remember my mother saying something to that effect. It's like, if you don't have your health, you don't have anything. All the money in the world doesn't help you if you don't have your health.
That's it. And that was me in the corporate chain. I had the money, but my health was terrible, and especially my mental health. And that's also included in your health. So,
Well, and we were talking too before we came on camera too about being introverts and being in business and being seen. You want to tell us a little bit about that part of the journey for us?
yeah. So, we were talking earlier about how I love doing speaking events and I have a podcast and all these different things. And it's so fun for me. But if you would have told me 10 years ago I would be doing anything like this, absolutely not. Like, I don't even know who I am right now as a person. So, for me, I was on the shyer side of introversion, so much so when I was a kid, I was so shy that if you just looked at me like a normal person, eye contact, I would go hide behind my parents and I felt like I was having a heart attack. Like, I know what it is now, it's anxiety, but like, it was so bad that my parents put me in modeling and acting classes because they were like, you have to be able to at least look at people. So that was the journey for me. And when I went to school in Florida, we didn't have to take any kind of like public speaking classes, anything of that nature. And then when I transferred back to Tennessee, it was a requirement to graduate. And I literally I considered dropping out of school. Like, that is not a lie. My best friend pretty much talked me out of it and he took the class with me. So going through that class was absolutely phenomenal experience because, one, I had the head of the department and everyone talked about how like hardcore she was and all these things. So like the anxiety is much higher for the introverted person, and you can't rely on. I was the best group person, like in school when you had to do like group projects. I would do everything and then everyone else could just speak. I had no problem with that. But of course, here you had to do everything. And so my first speech, I remember I did all the things, I did my research. I think I blacked out in my mind because I can't really tell you much about the speech other than what the topic was. And after I sat down, I remember saying, that was pretty good. Like, it just wasn't as bad as I thought. And then I thought when I got my grades back, this is going to be terrible. Like, I was so nervous. I know everyone could tell I was shaking and sweating and all the things. I got an A. And so, like, throughout the course, it was so amazing to see me transform that, like, I got better at it as I went and just realized it wasn't that bad. So, like, now it's one of my favorite things to do. So sometimes breaking through that fear wall will get you to something that's like truly incredible.
And it's kind of funny because even I'm, experiencing that in my own growth in my own life. Is It's almost seems like the thing you resist the most is the thing that's also going to bring you the most reward when you break through it.
Oh, yeah.
And that it's almost like smoke and mirrors. It's not. It's kind of like me on the other side of it. It's kind of like, well, why did I waste so much time? Why did I think that was so bad?
Mhm.
but
Every time.
we're masters at making up stories, aren't we?
Just have to get out of your own way, people. That's
It is.
all.
And having a coach like you, that's very powerful to help somebody walk through that. And, they know that somebody has their back and can support them through that journey of the unknown and being scared and having anxiety.
Yeah, yeah,
And
for sure.
yeah, and there isn't a one of us. I don't care if you're Oprah Winfrey or you're Taylor Swift. It's part of our human makeup that we all experience those same feelings. It's just we had a strong enough why that pushed us through, right?
Yeah, and then also coaches need coaches. So I feel like everyone needs a coach or mentor in their life in some aspect at every time in your life, because the first time I ever had a coach, I was mid-20s, like outside of sports. And I was like, this is incredible. Like, why did I not know about this? And so I always have a coach. So if you're thinking that you don't need one, it is life-changing, I'll tell you.
Well, it isn't, prior to the 2000s, only the elite or the president or high officials tend to have, a coach, a mentor, or I forget what they call him now, but a right-hand man that gave them guidance. And so now when a life coaching kind of came, like in my life, I didn't become aware of it till 2005, and it was still relatively new. And now it's so accessible because of COVID. It's almost like it opened it up, and people have gone before us, and it's so much easier to work with somebody who's been there and knows what it's like and how it feels, and you get to follow on their coattails. You don't, I mean, a lot of us spend a lot of times being solopreneurs, and you don't
That
need to do that. Reach out for help.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And to your point, like when you are looking for a coach, like make sure it is people who have those experiences who fit you and that will be there with you through the journey. And that's what I pride myself on, is being side by side with you, because I'm in the fight. Like these things that we struggle with, they don't go away. We just get stronger and better, right? So just make
Right.
sure that's a criteria that you look for as well.
Right. And that connection, having that connection. And then somebody who's not afraid to challenge you.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
We
yeah.
don't need that. Like just like the story of me public speaking, like you have to have someone that's going to push you to that fear wall, and then you have to make the choice to step through it. I agree with that 100%.
Yep. I just recently had going to a new level. I had my mentor do the same thing to me. And he knows me now. It's like I push back, you know. But the very next day I'm like, okay, I'm doing this. But I always have to have that little stubborn.
Yeah, we all do. It's fine. And then and like you said, he knows you and he's like, she'll do it. It's fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, it's so true. It's so rewarding too, both ways, uh, for us, the individual doing it, and then for the coach seeing your student, your client, have the success that you wish for them.
Oh yeah. And that's the part too. Like sometimes you might not believe in yourself, because a lot of times people will be like, "Oh, I can't do that because I don't think I can." Well, sometimes it's just having other people believe you can until you believe in yourself. So
Right? Exactly. Exactly. So are there any parting words of wisdom or anything that you would like to share?
I mean, if you guys are sort of in the space of what I talked about that I help people with, like mindset is a big thing for me, and then your health, right? So for me, one of the components that I added to my business is because I like to listen to what people need, not just going to put together random things. And the big part is with health comes nutrition. And with your nutrition, a lot of times it's either I don't like fruits and veggies, I don't eat enough, or the way that we get our food from grocery stores, our food a lot of times has to travel miles and miles, and the more it travels, the less nutrients it has. So a lot of us are deficient. So what I added to my repertoire is to be able to help people to get what they need as far as their fruits and veggies and nutrients that come from that every single day without having to add more food to their plate or to even taste them if you don't like them. So, if you guys are interested in anything of that nature, please reach out to me.
Well, speaking of that, how can they get in touch with you, and what services do you have that you can offer?
Yeah, so social medias, I'm Quiche Fletcher on Facebook. You'll see me on this little chat if you can't find me. Instagram, The Confidence Maker. That is my business name. Outside of that, info at theconfidencemaker.com. And as far as services, it's one-on-one coaching is what I have because I really like to give time to the individual. And that coaching could look like mindset, or it could be a combination of health and mindset, right? Because those are the things that are really going to push us forward so that we're able to accomplish those things that we want. I do things like asking you those tough questions, like, what do you want? Right? And guiding you through that to help you figure it out, work you through mindset, taking you through those limiting beliefs, things of that nature. So, those are just a couple of things that I can offer people today.
That's wonderful. Do you do a free consultation for people?
I do. Great question. I always like to do that one so I can get to know you a little bit, understand what goals that you have, and to make sure that we're a good fit. Because, like, if I can't help you, there's no point in signing up, and I can maybe refer you to someone else. Or if we're just not a good fit together, what's the point of going through that whole push and pull scenario? So, love getting to know you and your goals to tell you whether I can and how I can help you.
That's beautiful. Well, audience, will be sure to put her contact information above this interview so you can easily find it and get in touch with her. And Quiche, it's been such a pleasure to have you here with us today.
Same. Thank you for having me.